Welcome to Dwarven Forge Live. This is our deep dive into the Eldritch Reliquaries. We're going to spend the next hour taking a look at the crazy creative process behind these gorgeous horrors. I am Nate. Joining me across the room in the battle station is Chris from Brooklyn, New York. Wait, you're in Brooklyn? Wait, over there. Nina and Eli in Vermont is Eli. And I know my directions still.
You were always in the top left. That hasn't changed in a single stream.
I don't know where the... anyway.
All right.
So we're going to do a giveaway at the somewhere in the halfway point. And what else?
I don't even know if it's the halfway point. It's an hour long, so just kind of whenever it feels good.
Hang out. We're going to do a giveaway. We're going to talk to Eli. We're going to talk to Nina. Hamster's going to come rolling in with a bucket of purple paint. And... yeah.
It's gonna just ruin all of the
awesome.
all the sculpts.
Glitter bombs and purple paint should be good.
Yeah. Top of the morning. Yeah. All right.
Is that everything that's happening?
Basically.
Yeah.
So this is the fourth in a series of 6 actually. Streams going over the families in depth. This one will be covering Eldritch, and just like the three before, we're going to start off by showing a little mini documentary that Casey put together, where you will hear Eli and Nina and a couple other people from the team talking about these sculpts, just to give us a little bit of context and cover the basics.
And we want to hear from you, so ask us some questions and let us know what you think about all of it, about life.
About anything, really.
Generally...
Anybody see The Eternals?
No. Is that a movie film?
It's a movie film. All right. Let's watch a documentary.
Nice segue. One of the most fulfilling parts about Reliquaries is that this was really an art project. And this was a chance to really let our artists push the boundaries and make some bold decisions. And the only mandatory was it needed to look cool.
I like horror stuff. I like cosmic horror, abomination, creepy looking stuff. The creepier, darker, weirder side of things has always been something that really interested me and inspired me.
The biggest thing I'm looking forward to is I'm doing the evil grouping. Here's the thing, I'm a huge scaredy cat, but over this whole crazy pandemic, I've been getting really into horror stuff just to feel something.
I'm most excited, and just as a sculptor, to get to explore different styles.
I was doing demonic hellscape inspired designs. Nate had the idea that we could go in a bit of a different direction with this Kickstarter, and that it was an opportunity to try some things that we've wanted to do, but haven't really wanted to base an entire Kickstarter around.
I really like to push the team to explore a whole bunch of options. There's a freedom in just sort of wandering, exploring, and casting a really wide net and seeing where something really exciting is waiting.
With the drawings I did after that, they went in sort of a cosmic horror, but with a celestial spin. Celestial things have always seemed otherworldly, something that you look at and it's just, you don't understand it. And maybe this is based on the idea of biblically accurate angels. After I showed that round to Nate was like, go darker. And then I had the idea of what if the beauty of the celestial stuff was sort of being consumed and corrupted. If you look at these pieces, you can see the inspiration of sort of the Cthulhian mythos with the tentacles and the body horror.
I've been really interested lately in how we make little models genuinely scary. For Eldritch, it was kind of an interesting journey because I started with pestilence look with a lot of green and sort of sickly stuff going on. And then I showed it to Nina, who suggested leaning in the color blue, and we started talking about the radiant fallen angel aspect of it, so it kind of became a little more beautiful but still grotesque looking, which I like a lot. For those that know Warhammer Chaos, I kind of went from Nurgle to Tzeentch in my head.
The Gibbering Grasper came out of my love of body horror type stuff. It's definitely inspired by a creature like the one from The Thing. It's also got the Cthulhian tentacles going on the bottom of it. Trying to learn from mistakes with pieces that sent me into symmetry madness, I incorporated some digital sculpting. The process of putting the digital together with the clay and some green stuff is sort of a new process.
So for this one, this has to have the indicating point. We're trying to decide if it works with the paint or if possibly we will change the sculpt to make it a little more obvious, because I'm not sure if it's a little too kind of out of the blue and garish right there how it is, if it doesn't look organic enough. Is it a paint job or a sculpt job to make sure that this is indicating all of your cool abilities and stats and that kind of thing?
The Writhing Monument was based on a series of concept art pieces done by Felipe, which all featured ancient, strange artifact or monument, out of which weird eldritch creature parts were writhing and boiling and squirming out. Ultimately, the one we settled on was a broken tower almost. We didn't want it too static or tightly twisted. We wanted a sense of it to be alive, so I kept some wrapped in real tight, like they were grabbing it, crushing it, and had others that lifted away further to give it a real sense of movement. So the twists and counter twists made an interesting form, whichever way you look at it. One of the details I like best about this is the sort of sense of schizophrenia, where an incomprehensible being searching about in the world for things that can contain it, and it likes tentacles because they're grasping power and insinuating creepiness. Each one that it creates sort of seizes on a different reflection of some creature in the world, and each one has a distinct personality. It was really fun trying to make some have mouths on them with lolling tongues, and there's one kind of like a facehugger like spider, and there's another one that has suckers, but instead of like octopus suckers, they're each tiny leech mouths, as if the thing that is sending these forth is completely mad, but they're all creating the same kind of sense of mindless horror.
At first I didn't have anything done on the runes here, and making them glowy and blue adds a really nice accent and makes them look really cool and magical. So that was a great adjustment. At first it was just the gray stone and the cool tentacles, but that really elevates it, adds another color and another point of interest, and I like how it turned out.
The angels that are depicted in a lot of art where it's just a guy with wings. It's not always what angels were described as, and I thought that always the more interesting idea is the sort of weird alien but still beautiful, but like in a way that you are kind of makes you uncomfortable. The winged horror has its own agenda. I don't know if it's a friend or a foe. I think that it depends on what your goals are, whether they align with the winged horror or not. But I think it's like an inherently chaotic force that is incomprehensible.
When I first started, all I had was one wing and didn't even have the tentacles on it. So to get all of this and to see more of like the entirety of the creature or whatever is on there was kind of cool to add to the story, and the spikes, because there's this nice elegance up here and then it gets really sort of bestial down here. The sort of sickliness of it consumed more of the wing. So we knew it was a fallen angel sort of radiant being, but there was only a little bit of the old angelic feathers up here. But we decided to lean more into seeing some of the radiance, and I think that really makes it pop. I kind of imagine that it's something like larger and only a small part of it, just the tip of the iceberg, is poking out and consuming these structures, and even more nightmarish parts of it exist beneath.
If the winged horror could imbue dice with power, I think it would give them a sort of chaos magic. You may roll it, it might turn into a potato, it might turn into like a squirrel and run out the window, it could explode and burn a hole through your table, it could just give you a number. You just don't really know what it's gonna do.
Use of a rotating potato ever.
Yeah. I gotta say, I was telling them, while Casey was working on these, she messaged me at one point. She was like, hey, do you know where I can find like a rotating potato? And I have like a stock footage account subscription, and so like that sequence at the end was just her going wild and like the stock footage site just like pulling like.
I wonder why that exists. Like, who needs a flying, rotating, kaleidoscopic potato?
One of my favorite things to do.
Oh, okay.
I spent an evening one time just like putting random words into the search bar on that
See
stock
what
footage
you
site
can
to see what
turn
there
up.
is. There's like a whole series of this guy in like a panda mask, just like dancing weird in the woods.
You know, that's
Don't you just love people?
bamboo
Yeah.
sellers need that.
Any weird nonsense you can imagine, someone's out there doing it.
So speaking of weird nonsense, let's talk about this Eldritch collection. So this was once we kind of figured out our zones, we knew like Eldritch was kind of this area where like we need to do something kind of dark, evil, weird, twisted, creepy, pointy, dangerous, something like it was this sort of pretty big catch-all for like the weird dark rabbit hole. And as people were kind of, we had different people on point for each thing. It was like, well, Nina, go on down into the dark rabbit hole and see what you can bring back. And what'd you find down there? What happened?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, you're not
Yeah.
muted.
Yeah, OBS changed like the input.
Hey, not muted.
Yeah, OBS changed the input for some reason, but I got it switched back now. Y'all should be audible.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So down the dark rabbit hole is like my favorite place to explore when it comes to like pieces for Dwarven Forge. I just honestly like I think when I was talking to Nate about this, like originally I was like thinking of it very rigidly, and he's like, no, don't do that. Do something different. Go nuts. Just do something impractical. Go nuts, and we'll figure it out from there.
We don't
And
often get to just
like my
take the limiter
favorite-
off.
No.
I was like,
no.
just go for broke. Like, let's see what. I mean, they're just sketches. What's the worst that could happen? Well, this. But
Honestly, like doing the exploration for this was just a lot of fun. It's like I love cosmic horror. I love monsters. I love horror movies, and this allowed me to do more of that.
Why is it so fun to draw the weird, twisted stuff? Why?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it says something about my personality. Well,
what's-
because it's the freedom, maybe, right? Because if you're just drawing something that actually exists, it has to come out a certain way. But if you're drawing something that's like made of other things or doesn't actually exist, you just have a lot more freedom.
Right, a castle wall has to hold a thing up. Like some weird cosmic abomination can just be like some weird fancy that looks cool.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to follow gravity or anything. It can be a beholder and just float in the air and have no body, just or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So what were some of your influences as you were digging into this stuff?
So, I think once you started like saying just like go nuts, the first thing that popped into my mind was to like instead of doing, because we were talking demonic initially, so I was like, okay, well if it's gonna be on the darker side of things but not demonic, maybe Eldritch would be a good direction to go in. And I was thinking about body horror movies like The Thing, but I was like, okay, but I still want it to be pretty. And I'm like, okay, well, biblically accurate angels. Terrifying.
As somebody who is
Terrifying.
afraid to watch any horror movies, The Thing is
No, but you
authentically one
gotta
of my
watch
favorite
The Thing.
movies.
Yes, it is an amazing movie.
The
I
Thing
don't care
is-
if you don't like horror. Like,
The Thing is
check it
so
out.
good.
if you're
It's so
scared,
good.
watch it with a friend. It's just check it out.
Yeah.
Well, and that's Felipe references that movie all the time too.
Yeah,
Like it's-
yeah, and Felipe, of course, did some of the art for this too, and
Yeah.
it's actually really good that we were both kind of bouncing back and forth with like, all right, well, he did this, let me add this, and he was like, we're sort of like building off of each other's ideas.
Well, so we were originally kind of going, we're like, oh, it's going to be like infernal or demonic or something, whatever. And then as you wandered off to this thing, how did you end up, let's go to the sniper cam. How did you end up, like, how did we get here to like, from like, at one point it was like you had like a demon with like horns holding up dice to
I
this.
had like a 4-armed Goro from Mortal Kombat demon.
Yeah, it was totally Goro with like minotaur horns.
Yeah, which like who doesn't love a multi-armed demon? But this is just like a different path. Like we already did Hellscape, right? And I would absolutely love to do more Hellscape, more demons and stuff like that in the future. But this was kind of our opportunity to do something that we haven't done. And like in past Kickstarters, they've allowed us to like explore new ideas in a smaller way so that we can see if there's even interest in it before we pursue it fully. And this was an opportunity to do something like that.
What's the story behind this one, right? Because there's definitely a little tale, right there, behind what's happening in this sculpt.
So this one is building off of it's called the Radiant Horror, and basically it's something that was divine, was radiant, that got sort of corrupted by some sort of parasite. And you can see, if you turn it around to the back, you can see the parasite sort of growing out onto the wings. And in the front, you can see it busting through and crushing the pillar. And it's not sort of clear if that's the same parasite that the other two are made of, but it's certainly like a similar corrupted, parasitic, overgrowing species.
Yeah, not something you want in your garden.
Unless
really
that's
is.
what you're into.
Right. Okay, fair.
It really is passing through the stonework, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, for this
insane.
one and for the one that Eli did, the tentacles are really sort of destroying the stone structure.
Yeah.
Well, the big, in terms of process, we showed it a little bit in the video. This was like this is the first Kickstarter where we've really heavily dabbled in sort of merging 3D sculpting with traditional analog sculpting. I think was there a question about this in the chat too? Like what?
Yeah,
you want to talk a
Vertex
little bit
Artist
about?
asked this about in the Elemental stream. So basically, when everybody decided that they liked the drawing with the multiple wings, and Nate was like, "Okay, so how long do you think it would take you to sculpt this?" And I was like, 15 years maybe.
And literally, you said that.
I don't know. I wish I hadn't drawn this. So what we decided was that, like, because I sculpt 3D also, and like a lot of sculptors use all these different mediums, right? So I thought, well, I'm just gonna sculpt one wing digitally, and because I want every single one of them to be different, I don't want the eyes to be the same on all of them. It's gonna save me a lot of time if I just sculpt one wing and then modify it and then print out the wings.
Well, and it saved us too because we ended up making it right. It ended up having to get a little bit larger, and then.
Oh yeah, no. Well, what happened is, like I think we said in the other one, that the Phoenix sort of set the scale for everything. So I just kept having to size this up because it like no, bigger. The Phoenix is the wings are this wide. It needs to be this wide, and because it was digital, that was like a very easy change to make. It just involved printing it out at a different size.
And then didn't you, when you put the bowl on the top, I think you ended up making the wings bigger too because they didn't feel big enough in relation to that.
Exactly. The bowl was blocking the wings because any sculptor could speak to this, but sometimes when you get the art that's 2D, it doesn't always translate to 3D perfectly because it's difficult for things to be one-to-one from 2D to 3D because sometimes with a 2D drawing, you're taking shortcuts.
Yeah.
And didn't you add, wasn't it 5 wings and then you went up to 7 at one point?
We were debating whether or not it should be perfectly symmetrical, and Michelle was like, well, it'd be far more Eldritch and Cthulian if there was an odd number of wings, and so that's why we ended up at this number.
7. How many things with 7 wings are out there? Not a ton.
3.5 birds.
And then we got we were looking at doing the LEDs in green, and then Miles put in that blue one, and it was just like, oh, that is the way to go. Such a neat, the pulsing blue.
Well, that actually was inspired by Hamster's paint job for the is it the Writhing Monument? What is it? Yeah. He had put some blue accents in some of the runes, and when he posted it, we were like, oh man, that looks cool. Maybe the light should be blue for the other one also. Well, you kind of can't tell on this video, but it looks a lot bluer in person.
one of the challenges too, and we'll talk about when we get to paint, was like this is a really complicated one to paint, and we couldn't use like 47 different colors. So it was like, how do you paint this and make it look good with a limited palette? So it's really, I don't know how many there are, but it's not a ton. Well, let's look at the Writhing Monument.
At the same time, I also want to shout out Yanir's in chat.
Oh, we got her dice in here. Let's put it back in.
Yeah.
Yanir made these.
Yeah, Yanir made just these really gorgeous. He'll show you soon.
That was the ones that we opened with were this was the Yanir. Was it the Portal at End of Time or the Eldritch? I can't remember. They're really cool names.
We got a couple of her sets here, right?
Yeah, and we had yesterday in the Elven one we were showing the blue Elven set that she made.
She says it's called Eldritch Rift.
Eldritch Rift,
which is very fitting.
Yeah, go figure.
Very fitting.
And then the Portal at End of Time is over here somewhere too. She makes her dice inspired by her D&D game, which is awesome. Like,
that's cool.
Each one is inspired by events or characters in the game. It was a sort of an extension of she wanting to keep playing D&D. They're really just absolute works of art and passion. Like, there's so much work in these. So these ones are hard to see in the thing, but this is the Rift at the End of Time, where they have basically a black side and a like this cool clear thing with inclusions. I don't know what all is going in there, but it's amazing. And what was neat was I was kind of bummed when we got these because I was like, the high side basically just looks black, and I'm like, why isn't the really pretty side up on the high side? Whatever. And she said, well, if you roll really low, like when you roll that nat, when you roll the 20, it's fine if that's black. Yeah, but when you roll that 1, I want the beautiful side up when you roll the low number, so it takes it takes the edge off of like that low number, and so like you're like, well, at least I get to gaze upon the glory of these. So they're all the prettiest side is the lowest number, and the highest side is the one that's like the pure black.
I hope I fail so I get a better view.
Yeah.
Nina, did you do the 3D sculpting in ZBrush?
Yeah, it's in ZBrush.
Okay.
Yanir is actually the reason why I started trying to make handmade dice way back before the pandemic, about 8 years ago.
Really? I remember you casting some in the studio.
Yeah, I had seen her dice on Twitter, and I was like, man, that looks cool. I should try that. So, shout out to Yanir.
Woo! I have a really nice blood red failed die that you gave me. Like, do you remember
my
that
failed
one?
dice?
Yeah, it's like half melted.
Big bad failed dice.
Red, yeah, it's awesome. It looks like it was like take a blowtorch went to it or something. It's like melted out.
Yeah, when Nina
It's
was
got
sitting
spirit.
next to me, I saw many interesting experiments on her desk.
That is awesome. All right, so let's look at this. Let's look at this Writhing Monument. So this was. So, Eli, this thing. What was the story on this guy?
Well, I mean, this one was
Where
this had its genesis from some cool art that Felipe did, as the documentary talked about. He'd done a bunch of different things, but they all kind of had the same feeling in that they were some kind of artifact being attacked or emerged from or surrounded by some kind of creepy stuff, generally involving tentacles. And the one that we especially liked was, sort of an obelisk or a tower-like structure that was breaking apart as these tentacles wrapped around it. And so, my task was to translate that into 3 dimensions, which was tricky because there were a lot of, in the original art, there were a lot of just gaps and open spaces and pieces pulled apart that would have been extremely hard to manufacture. But we still wanted that feeling, so my solution was basically to have some of the tentacles wrap in really tight, because they are crushing it, they're breaking it apart, but that also allowed us to kind of compress the space there, but then have a few pieces that pulled away that are reaching up and wrapping around, and that gives some interesting kind of appealing imbalance to the shape, so that so it looks fun from different angles. Each side kind of reveals a slightly different. It looks
totally different depending on how you spin it.
Yeah.
It's also the only one that has the top is crooked.
Yeah.
Purposefully. You're like, are you sure we're going are you sure we're doing this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. So it has this unsettling, like the die is listing off to the side. The whole thing looks like it's about to fall off. Like it's a pretty cool.
And if you rotate it and use a few of them together, seeing 3 or 4 from different angles, you might think they're 4 completely different sculpts, or so that's fun if you're using it as terrain, or if you just want variety in your array, no matter how you look at it. Yeah. So that was kind of conceptually what's going on. It was a bit of a challenge, this piece, because I initially sculpted it, and we've been trying, as time goes on, to be more and more and more particular about exact sizing of things and laying all those things down. And we had been really good about defining the diameter of all these sidecars, but the height, well, this ended up being taller when we put it in with the other 2 pieces in the Eldritch set. The original version was holding the die at close to the height that the Radiant Horror does, and that was not aesthetically satisfying, shall we say? So
it
we
needed
wanted
to have like a
little
progression.
bit lower, so that there was well, basically, I had to resculpt the whole thing because chopping it down essentially meant I had to change, all the tentacles. They were green stuff, so they go out the window. And then the main structure was originally in 3 parts, and I think actually some of the images in the documentary show that version, which is kind of breaking one way, breaking the other way, and then it had a nice kind of collapsing upon itself feeling to it. But
that was true
because of
Felipe's first art had that 3 sort of like wobbly Jenga tower sort of thing going.
And I couldn't really reduce the size of the top because it had to hold the die and it had to hold the inserts. So although I was able to shrink that down a little bit, that basically meant the bottom part got compressed. And if I tried to squeeze a third little bit in the middle, it would have started feeling top heavy because you would have had a top that was bigger than either of the bottom parts.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have worked. The same back and forth wouldn't have worked. So what I ended up doing instead was kind of splitting it vertically. So it's still 3 parts, and it's kind of breaking open front and side, and there's a tentacle coming out of the middle in a way that's like it's pushing apart the skin of the stone. And so I felt like that still kind of gave us that same feeling of smashing it into 3 parts, and it kept the right, kept a appealing proportions, because you want, even though this is a weird Eldritch thing and the tentacles are completely out there and chaotic, the monument that it's destroying should feel like originally it was a harmonious piece of art, even if it was a weird, creepy one that maybe.
Well, you spent some time trying to figure out what does this thing look like? What are the flanges like? What are the runes like? What is what is the intact monument? Like, I feel like, didn't you rough up an intact version before you did the shattered version?
I made a complete intact version, and I did lots of versions of it before I even made the clay one. We had one where the top kind of had like a Saruman's Tower and Orthanc kind of, pointy blade-like spires on top, and various other things. But they were either they messed with holding the die, or they kind of took over, kind of pulled some focus from the tentacles, and it didn't want to seem like the monument had a chance, really. Like, the tentacles were definitely destroying it, and we didn't want to give it too much of a defense. But we settled on something that was kind of like the head of a mace, so it's got these flanges, there's a little sharpness, there's some runes to it. And maybe this was originally a brazier, or maybe it held, a sacred gemstone like the die becomes, or whatever the case might be. You can do that. That's actually kind of fun.
Not bad, right?
Yeah.
Or this guy.
Or like, if don't we have some green flames? Are the green? Well, let's see. If you could pull one
and
out
the
of...
serpent. I don't know if they're removable. This also I like putting these guys on there too. The chain crystal,
Oh yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
That
So anyhow,
belongs there.
The weird, the Facehugger tapeworm. What this guy can get this. What's
Yeah. Well,
It's also kind of a sick thing to put the BBEG on top of.
Yeah.
Felipe's art definitely had something that had kind of this spidery end to it. So really went all in on, kind of the Facehugger vibe, where something that is just grabbing onto that stone and kind of crushing into it, and it's breaking the flanges apart with its claws. And I added a few little eyes on it because why not? Definitely kind of thinking about tapeworms. I looked at a lot of like lampreys and leeches when I was working on this to kind of get that vibe. I wanted each of these to feel kind of like something from Earth, but then as if some creature from far, far away is looking for things in our world to possess or imitate.
Mimicking.
But it either gets it wrong because it's insane, or it warps them in ways that suit its purposes by making them even nastier. So the suckers become leech mouths and so on. Just something that's mad and grasping and squirmy, and it's embodying itself through kind of a schizophrenic mixture of different tentacles.
I feel like you guys managed to have some cohesion in the tentacles, even though they each have their own weird identities. There's also enough cohesion that it feels like they're, they could be coming from the same otherworldly source or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe these things on the Writhing Monument are sort of trying to imitate or pay homage to or toady up to the Radiant Horror, because that's the boss beast. And so they're like, oh, we're tentacles too. We're evil too. Check this out.
We're tentacles too.
Can we show them the inside of the bowl? Just to show, because there's some sculpted detail in there when the insert's not in, right? Oh, I was talking about on the
there's
the
a swirly ring.
Oh, that too.
Yeah, this guy has the cool runes around it. This has, you can see it, some cracked stone in there.
Yeah.
Hard to.
Yeah, I definitely tried to keep as much texture in there as I could without creating something that would mess up how the inserts fit. Just so it looks good when you remove them. It still feels like an intact piece of artifact.
Yeah.
Let's look at the last.
I think pretty much with all the sculpts we thought about, like, how do we texture the wells so that they don't just look like.
How can there be something nice there? Even it's got to be a die hole. So this guy, what was it? The Devouring Aberration. What was his story? Its story? Their story?
Yeah, I mean, I think like this is the most fully creaturey one of these. Like, it's fully destroyed whatever pillar it was trying to burst out of. This one started as just like a mass of hands, and then like discussing it and thinking about it, we're like, that's gonna suck to cast all those little fingers. So it kind of got dialed back to just 3 arms and a bunch of tentacles.
Like 30 hands. It was like a
there were just like a truly unacceptable amount of hands initially.
The working title was Hand Mound for a little while.
Yes, it had hands, it had mouths, it had eyes. It was crawling along. So also the tentacles bring it more in line with the other two. You can see there's tentacles on this from the Radiant Horror. There's ones from the Writhing Monument. It has a lot. It's pulling from a lot of the same inspirations. You can see there's the ones that are like the Geiger Facehuggers also on there. There's just like there's the ones that are more like what do they call those eels? Is it the lamprey eel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tentacle suckers. Ugh. You love. I feel like it reminds me also of this. This guy.
Yeah, I love messed up arms. I don't know.
Yeah, twisted arms.
But this one here, like it was going for like more like realistic. Those ones are like probably a lot more mutated because there's also like little hands melting all over the place inside of that one. What was that floor piece called again? I forget.
It was the Lemur Pool.
Lemur Pool. Yeah.
Yeah. If you melt down like 10 lemurs and put them in a 10 by 10, that's what you get. And throw some maggots in there for good mix. It's like, yeah, you went in. You went in.
We have a fairly new person, New Classic Mel. This is the second stream they've been to. They're also a sculptor. They're saying they love the hands, and hands are not easy.
Oh, this guy's broken. Well,
No, they're not. You don't want to know how much time I spent on these hands. I would say the majority of the time for this piece went into the hands.
well, you
Like
caught a lot of
once I got the hands, it was smooth sailing from there.
the tension in the fingers. There's really
It feels like it's moving.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
if, like I'm sculpting, like I have my own hand like this, and I'm like sculpting with the other hand. I just
Yeah.
like looking at it because like it's to have like the reference right there, and that's the great thing about hands is everybody, reference is not hard to find of that.
Yeah. Plenty of hands out
I
there.
have a lot of artist friends that talk about that, like taking like pictures of themselves in really weird positions just so they have it for reference.
I was really
Like-
lucky to go to Industrial Light and Magic. I was doing a commercial back in the day with a Star Wars tie-in and got to work with the Yoda animator, and he had right by on his computer he had a mirror, and he would constantly, as he was animating, he would be staring at his face in the mirror, doing different things to see what are the secondary movements and the tertiary movements and all this other stuff. Like he really spent almost everybody there, and he walked by. You see, everybody has these little like rear view mirrors on their computers so they can reference.
Super
whatever.
important. Reference
Yeah.
is super. Like, didn't I even walk into your office, Nate, and ask you to make a claw hand for me so that
Yes.
I could see what your wrist tendons were
Yes.
doing? Yeah, no, it's super helpful for doing stuff like this. To like, even if you're gonna mess it up and like say like a lot of the muscles, especially in the upper arm, are not where they are supposed to be, or they're connecting in weird ways in weird places. But
Well, they have
you have to
eyes.
have it. You have
mean-
to have reality, and you're
Oh, I
gonna
just
break
noticed
that.
the eyes on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You-
there's actually gonna be more eyes on the final one.
Woo!
The well insert looks like a
After
mouth.
this was molded, it got a little broken, and when I was fixing it up, it may or may not have gotten a few more eyes.
May or may not. Let's do our giveaway, and then we can have Hamster talk about color. What's a word? Who's got a word?
Any words?
Did Hamster pick a word yet?
Hey, wait, Stefano's here, right? Stefano,
He is,
pick
yes.
a
Yeah,
word.
Stefan should pick a word.
Yeah, what's your word? And while you're picking a word, what do you love most about these Eldritch bits?
Can never have too many eyes. That's what Grandma said.
No,
All right.
Stefan!
Word is anus.
Are we actually? Are we going
Yeah,
with this?
yeah, we're going. The word. This is.
Woo! All right. If you want to win a $50
should've said
credit
pick
to the
a
Pledge
PG
Manager to
word.
get yourself some reliquaries, type anus in chat. Any
Any anus will do.
any anus in chat. Capitalization does not matter. It's okay to. You can even use anus in a sentence. It doesn't need to be just anus. This is
I feel like
this is
they're
eligible.
gonna be afraid to
Everybody.
answer this one.
Everybody is eligible for $50 of reliquaries in the Pledge Manager.
My mother is watching this stream.
Is she?
Yes.
Well, this is probably the most professional. It could be sphincter. It could be any.
Stefan.
We could
Stefan?
use
Anus, ANICAISE, right?
Anise, yeah,
Spice.
there's a spice.
Yeah.
He brings something to the table every time.
Yeah, if we lose a viewer suddenly, I'm sorry, Mom.
Remember when the company went out of business because of the moral outrage over us using anus as a giveaway word?
Yeah, remember that? It was
We got
wild. Yeah.
protested into the ground.
Yeah. Oh man. So, Stefan, what do you love most about this Eldritch collection? Here, besides the anus.
Ani?
Ani, yeah, it's biblical. Can't even say anything. It's wonderfully gross. Good description. It really is.
All right. Well,
So, Hamster, you want to talk us? Come on in and tell us how did you make it so wonderfully gross?
With lots of help.
So you got handed these weird things. What?
Well, I
start
started.
with the wing.
I started with one single wing, and it started. We're talking about parasites and corruption. It started very green and black, and there was maybe one feather remaining, with just barely in its usual state, and it looked cool, and it probably would have worked.
This was the test print wing, right?
It was a
Nina
test
had done
print
just
wing.
a single.
And I would say, in my mind, it leaned more toward the traditional or common, like, Eldritch vibe. And it looked cool. But I put it out there, and I talked to Nina. And, of course, she just told me the name that we were going with anyway, more Radiant in the Radiant Horror. And that kind of just, to put that as, like, the top of the scale, really changed it for me. She did throw blue out there for me just as a suggestion. I never really like considered that in a palette for something like this. And as soon as like she just gave me those couple of ingredients, I just kind of stirred that pot and kind of really had a clearer vision of like the sort of vibe we wanted this to end up at. And of course, it just it just
You stirred the pot beautifully.
yeah. I'm very, very happy.
It's a pretty
With this
restrained, like, it's such a wild sculpt. It's not a ton of colors at the end of the day.
Well, that's been as Eli said, they've been the sculpt team has been trying to get a little more animate on geometry and sizing, that kind of thing, and it's my job to continue to get better at like how efficient the paint scheme is, because it affects the factory and the pricing and all of that stuff. There's a lot of factors that go into it. So if I throw too much at it, I'm gonna end up having to cut stuff anyway. So that was one of the fun things is on this wing. When I'm first sitting there, I'm doing a lot of little blendings just to see how I want to get it to read. And then by the time I'm like doing just batches for different purposes for the Kickstarter, it's kind of down to a science, and there's really very little technique and precision needed, but the effect, then the way that everything kind of combines layered on top of each other.
Well, I feel like the technique is you're figuring out the color, the color palette that's going to work and what to hit.
Yeah.
And then it makes it easy.
Well, so obviously the main thing is, if we're going to pull any punches, just throw them all at the wings.
Yeah.
And just like if you're going to go crazy on anything, go crazy on the wings. And I think it works out so well, especially because the detail is absolutely incredible. So awesome work, Nina.
Didn't you have irises in the eyes initially?
The first
the green
one,
eyes had
I think this has come up a couple streams, and in fact, it was Nina's gibbering mouther that I first went nuts on, eyes and pupils and trying to go a little too crazy.
You get to paint all my gross, weird stuff, don't you?
Oh, and I love it. I love it. So much fun. But it was so interesting. I remember the moment when I thought of silver, because I was staring at these eyes. And it was just like kind of this eureka moment of hitting all of the marks at once of like, it's a single color, it's one pass, it's nothing technical about it. But when I envisioned it on there, I was like, it's totally has the effect we're going for.
Well, it's eerie, it's otherworldly.
It's eerie and also kind of pretty. Like that's what I love about the sculpture and the paint is like the juxtaposition of Radiant horror, beautiful but scary. Like I just love stuff like that.
The name nailed, like it was really. I feel like that was the final thing that it needed, was like this cool name that told us what the story was.
It was a compass. Like those two.
Yeah.
That juxtaposing terminology was like the whole compass of this scheme.
I feel like that was Michelle. I don't know. I can't remember where anything comes from, but when we were throwing around names, it was somebody said it, and it was like that was the eureka.
Yeah, we had like a 6-hour meeting about what to name all these things.
We did. There was a whole meeting that was just us throwing out names.
And I'm not exaggerating when I say it was 6 hours long.
Yeah. Yes.
So I think this is about our longest development meeting in the entire series.
Yeah. Well, it's an important final bit. So this guy, or the Writhing Monument, Felipe's initial concept had each of these was like a different color, texture, whatever, right? It was like trying to be really...
It was like different creatures or different things.
Gray tentacles and an orange and a pink and a whatever. It was like all over the place.
And, part of that is informed by the more colors we add, it's going to affect the manufacturing. But I also really like the idea, well, one, it's a parasite infecting these things, so it can corrupt it, with similar side effects. And it looked so cohesive together artistically, but also I just kind of like the idea that if you're looking at it up close, you can see all the different things, but from afar, it just kind of looks like a wriggling mass. And like, it's almost fun that you need to look for the differences, and it's otherwise just this abomination that like you can't even pick out everything unless you're really examining it because it's just so on top of each other.
Well, there's a lot happening, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like if we had gone 9 different colors on the tentacles, it would be
a lot.
lot to
And
take
I
in.
also really like how in this one in particular, how it turned out that the different like color layers on there read differently on the different textures. Like
Yes.
the texture diversity is still there, and I don't think we needed a bunch of colors to have the variety. It's just the way that the paint reads on each little sculpted thing.
and it lets that cyan pop.
Yeah.
So those runes look really cool. So you kind of have different things, points of interest. Really came out. And then you got
What
to
you
this
were-
guy. Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say what you're saying there, Hamster. Like, I love doing that in sculpts, doing things where people don't see everything initially, and you have to just keep looking, and you get surprised by things. Where
Right.
there are
Right.
details
Exactly.
that kind of hide, the subtle side of it. Obviously, it needs to work when you first see it, and
Yeah.
that certainly does with that paint scheme. But it rewards closer examination.
Like exploration of the sculpt. Like it reads, it's
Yeah.
clear, but there's little rewards and Easter eggs for like really taking a look.
Well, you guys love hiding those little thoughtful touches, those little story elements. Those
And I know the feeling because they're usually a surprise to me. You guys have been looking at the sculpts, and the sculpt gets on my desk. I'm like, there's a little lizard right there.
And then this was the last guy you painted, right?
Yeah.
The batch.
And so this was interesting because it's a little different. We had the discussion about having the cohesive colors on there, but then it became a little too blobby when we did this. It was just some hands with a big old pink belly. It kind of looked like, and so we did decide to break it up, but it works because I did want the hands to kind of be a little more shadowy, and it's more of the horror over the beauty up there, which I just love how gross and articulated each little joint is. So I think it fits into that. And so then I just sort of pulled this shadowy bluish color into the wriggled mass.
Wriggled mass is a great.
Just
that's exactly how to describe that, is it?
But just to not only like keep this new color for the hands kind of cohesive and shaped well on it, but also to break up that stuff, because I think it's an example of, in this case it didn't bias as much as leaving it, and then it does bias a little more to break it up.
The wriggled mass needed a little variety in there.
Got a couple questions that I think would be
Let's do it.
fun to cover. First one is this one will be pretty quick. The paint on the eyes, is that has like an iridescent like reflective effect on it?
Yes, but it's just because it's our Cecile silver metallic paint, so it has metal flakes in it.
So it's
So it's
just
nothing really
metallic.
fancy. It's not using any kind of effect. It's just a metallic silver paint, a brighter silver. So the Cecile silver is brighter than like a gunmetal, so I think it works well.
Awesome. And then Mel was wondering, for the gaping maws, we've got black holes. Did you ever try doing like a red or like fleshier hole for the mouths, or no?
I did. Part of that was eliminating color. I think I could, and we still have to do a master, like getting the pink right to where when it goes over the texture and it will hit some of those mouths, it will still work in a similar way without adding another color. But also, I liked the idea of like using something like the feathers to have the organic, healthier part of it, and not having it need to be so correct or like true to life with the flesh color, and have it be more alien and corrupted, and sort of pushing that. So it is technically a flesh color with the pinks, but it's exaggerated.
Alien, it's creepier, it's
Like a
unsettling.
rotting flesh, like
Yeah.
rotting, bruised, undead flesh.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the spirit of the sculpt.
Right.
It wants it to be something unsettling.
And again, this is informed by Nina's other wonderful creepy things, where I was doing a lot of fleshy mouths on the gibbering mouther and other similar things like that. And so I decided to. It did go into the thought process, but I think I like where we ended up without it.
Yeah, when you posted this on the Slack channel, I like audibly gasped. I was like, what, like.
Well, yeah, I like.
No, this paint scheme. This is the stuff you love to see as a sculptor, to be honest, because like you have no idea how it's gonna come out in the end, and then when you get a paint scheme that like just brings what you made to life, it's like amazing.
I mean, yeah, I'll tell you what. It's one of the most rewarding things is when you can actually surprise people in the office that have been looking at the stuff for how long, and like it means so much to each person that has worked on it, and so to like be true to them and like all of our efforts really creating like something greater than what we expected is so fun.
The pressure's on because you're kind of you're almost the
last
stop,
leg. It's
the
like
last
the
stop on
last
the
leg.
train, right?
Yeah,
Like it's been a long journey, and then it gets to you, and it's like, okay, don't drop the baton here.
Yeah,
you got,
so much has been put at people.
Everybody is like sacrificed to get this to you. You got to get it out.
They've sculpted and resculpted. They've done the castings. We've got video shoots coming up. So there is some pressure, but it's exciting. And I remember the moment when I got Nina's feedback and got others' feedback on the colors. And I had that little tickle in my brain of like, I'm gonna go look crazy, and that was the first time pink appeared on the Radiant Horror, and I was like, I absolutely love it.
It was
but
perfect.
when I was just sitting in my little hobby, desk, I was like, this is either gonna be the best thing ever, or it's gonna be hilariously awful.
But you know what?
But I threw it out there.
But that's what we want. That's what we need to go for, right? You need to try those bold choices.
Yeah.
Say, maybe pink is the way to go, and it was. It was 1,000% the right thing, and it was. It's the willingness to dive in and fail, right? Do it wrong and just try. I don't know.
And again, this was just on the one wing, so we got more of the actual angelic feathers. We added some blue, and I was like, this needs a little. It looks cool, needs a little something else. And there was just a little pink sitting there on my desk, and that's history.
What we have any other questions from chat?
Yeah, one more before we go into the build, because we have a pretty cool build today.
I forgot we have a build.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool one. Are there any Vertex was wondering if we have any of those thoughtful touches on these sculpts hidden anywhere? Any little Easter eggs that we can highlight?
One of my favorite things is how it looks like the way the stones are down here. It really looks like it's like erupting right there, like just the way they're sort of stacked. There's like almost a little movement like as this thing is wriggling, and I think it's really in the different textures of all the different eyes, and these teeth will be painted. Actually, I was silently kicking myself as I was watching. I was like, I missed some teeth, but I think the reward of this is really just the variety. We have already talked about this, how it spins and like turning the reliquary to the back. Like you look at it, it's already super awesome, but there's even more than meets the eye from the main display view.
The spine on the back of this thing, like,
and just the way like it informs the story. Nina said it perfectly. Of like you can just literally see the movement of it taking over this thing from the back. So I don't know. I just think like the surprise is they're meant to be displayed, so like you're seeing a lot of the main details. But I think the real reward is when you really examine them from outside of the main display view and see what is really all over these things.
Well, we said, I think, yesterday, where there's stuff on the backs of all these, like, it's a 360 sculpt.
Right,
there's always something interesting. Every side is interesting.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Any other questions, or should we go over to Build Town?
I think let's go over to the build, and also let's do the giveaway real quick.
So
I think we've collected enough anuses by this point.
didn't.
My mother texted me to let me know that she was not, in fact, offended. She is a nurse, and that she has heard worse.
I would hope so. Although I'm also intensely curious. I think I would like to live in whatever part of the country you could live in where anus would be the worst thing you've ever heard. That sounds like a remarkably charmed life.
Tame place,
Yeah. All right. Let's roll this giveaway, and get into the build.
Well, thank her for tuning in.
All right. Subtalon. Hey.
Hey.
That's a familiar face.
Subtalon.
Woohoo! Long-time DF supporter.
All right. Perfect.
Congrats.
It's been in our games at conventions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He hung out with us one night at Gen Con. He won the
I'm talking about
the
Gen
auction.
Con, yeah.
Yeah.
He came to the awards with us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
with
his son? Yeah.
That's awesome. Congrats, man. Love. So you got yourself some
you. Just need
pledge
your
manager credit.
Yeah, just need your Kickstarter email so we can put the credit on your account. And
We just need your bank account information and
Yeah.
your social security number, and we'll.
Mother's maiden name.
Yeah.
Stefan needs
Name of
your
your
help.
first pet.
Send us the numbers on the front of your mom's credit card and the 3 numbers on the back.
Okay, let me move that.
Help Stefan.
He's been kidnapped.
He's been kidnapped and needs your money.
Do not be kidnapped.
All right. Let's see.
All right. So this is something Chris and I put together in a.
Last night, like
hurry.
after the stream last night, I was like, wait, what build do we want for Eldritch? And it's like, oh, let's do a swamp this time. I think we've put in the process of like filming and taking photographs of Eldritch. I think we've put it on more builds than any of the others. Like we've put it.
He wants to explore.
We've put it in a cavern. We've put it on Hellscape. We put it on ice. I guess we've put it
on ice.
on all the.
You've seen
put it on ice.
Hellscape.
We've put it. Yeah, we've actually taken photos of it in every cavern except for Underdoom actually, because we felt like Underdoom it would just kind of blend in too much.
I'm a happy little hamster father because I have a reunion of all my little babes with some Hellscape pieces I painted here that I didn't even notice until you just said.
Oh yeah.
So this is the ruined temple deep in the swamp, perhaps the once a shrine to Entrogus, or now a shrine to Entrogus. And then the thought was you could put, so there's a, let's see if I can get there. So we've got the Writhing Monuments and the Radiant Horror up there, but then there's like a big gap in the floor. Where is it? And I thought as you could have this thing could burst out, right? The Devouring Abomination could burst out once they once the players sort of wandered in to do whatever. And there's a big so they could be a little fight, or maybe they could pop out a couple of places in the water, something. They're definitely like muck dwellers under there. And there's we got it's the altar from or the table from Plaguestone with the Flectory staves, and then the dais from Forsaken Temple, and put the chained crystals from Cameron's Deep on top of those. And looks like a pretty neat thing, right? And there's plenty of swamp around the sides, so players could come in from a couple of different sides. This is true. Sail their swamp barge to get in here. So.
Video Gothic says they're getting Hellboy Angel of Death vibes.
Yeah.
Which I think tracks.
Totally tracks.
Let's see. I was telling him this build just reminds me, it feels like an advanced version of the Red Rot Rune build of the month with the Entrogus storyline.
That was your inspiration.
Yeah. Let's just do Red Rot Rune.
Souped up version.
Yeah. So this time we actually have something to like represent Entrogus. Oh, we should have put the ants in. Oh well.
Well.
I love swamps so much.
Swamps are cool, man.
I really can't wait to see what people do with these.
It just feels like the kind of place you would have an adventure, right? It's not like you don't willingly go into the swamp. Like you have to go there for something's drawing you in, right? You have to find this thing, or the lost kid, or the lost temple, or the whatever, or the hag lives there. You've got to get the info. Or, you're forced in there because you're an adventurer, and just terrible things are there. Yay, swamps. Cool. Whoa. Any other questions, or should we call it out? Is it 3 o'clock? Yeah. 4 o'clock.
Yeah, if you got questions. Oh, wait, here's one. From Finley Shards. Random thought, are the arms on the pieces the right size for the hanging moss to attach to for extra slimy coming out of the muck look?
Ooh,
that's a good idea.
Should we grab, do we have, I mean,
I don't know where it is,
that,
but
right?
yes, we could certainly try that.
I'll run and try to find that real quick.
I think it's going to be, because I made those big enough to go over a lot of things.
They can fit over a dungeon wall, so they should be able to fit over
exactly
creepy, clammy, necrotic hand or whatever.
I think I literally sculpted it on a dungeon wall too, so and the wrists are definitely narrower than that, so.
Do you guys have any other parting remarks?
Parting remarks?
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in. Call your mother.
I mean, I guess I'll just say, I don't know. Thank you to all the concept artists and the sculptors of these pieces. Like, this is just one of my favorites I've ever had the opportunity to work on, and so it's just, really one of those ones that's rewarding that I'll always look back on as a favorite, and it's because of everyone's, work on it together. So, I don't know. This is just one of the ones I truly love in the collection.
Aw.
You're like someone's cutting onions in here. Getting emotional, and I don't want to feel anything, Hamster.
Not on camera. Yeah, no emotion on camera.
You certainly did your part to make it really work and come alive.
Yep.
Let's see. Yeah, it definitely fits over the arms. You can probably put that in a couple places on it.
It's also now like a waiter, like a washcloth, like a classy.
This little towel.
Yeah.
It's a waiter at the worst restaurant ever.
Yeah.
They the host takes you to your seat, and your waiter is also your seat.
And then you were the hors d'oeuvre.
Your waiter is also your seat. It fits over the. You see it on the Writhing Monument there too. You can put over the
Oh,
tentacle.
looks good there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's great.
Coming out of the thing. That's a good idea, Finley.
I feel like we can put that in a lot of places. Well, that's the whole point of the moss, right? Like,
Yeah.
it goes over
You'd hang it
a
over
lot
anything.
of stuff.
Swamp up anything. Really, if we had more, we could have put it over the dungeon walls too.
Is that true silver service? Yeah, say what you want. They may be cannibalizing you. They may it may be like a horrific experience, but they're very attentive service.
Devouring Aberration diner.
More Eldritch ruins. Well, that's the curious thing is, there were some people on the Discord earlier today saying like they actually want us to go this direction for sci-fi and do like flesh caves that feel like this.
Nina's been champing at the bit for that for years.
Yeah, no, I suggested that like 5 years ago. Let's do flesh dungeons.
Yes.
People will love it.
What are those red pole accessories?
Those are the phylactery staves
From Plaguestone.
Plaguestone.
They're freestanding, right? They're not pole
Yeah.
accessories?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They seemed like just the sort of thing you'd put in the this
That's-
weird creepy temple.
That's from Encounter 4 of
Yes,
Plaguestone, right?
Sinister dungeon lair.
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's call it a show.
All right.
Thank you, Hamster. Thank you, Eli. Thank you, Nina. Thanks for hanging out. Where's the? Oh. Thanks
you,
to
Nate.
everybody
Thank you,
for
Chris.
tuning
Thank you,
in.
Nate. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everybody.
Stefan, good to see you in chat. Good to see everybody out there. We will be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. for Artificer.
Currently, yeah, we'll see if everybody's okay with 11 a.m. Wait, what do we got going on for meetings tomorrow morning?
I don't know.
All right, we'll have to check that. I think they got. We'll check.
Yep.
It'll be in the morning tomorrow. I'm pretty sure 11.
Let's just leave it. That's what we said. Yeah.
Cool. Move the meetings.
What time?
Cancel the meetings.
She said 9 a.m.
Oh.
meeting. I think.
No, no.
I think that's what I heard. It's
Yeah.
breaking up.
Abort the mission.
Oh.
And so 11 a.m. tomorrow for Artificer, and then
11
6
a.m.
p.m.
Eastern.
for the Magic stream.
6 p.m. for the Magic Stream.
We're gonna take Jimmy Wong and head to head and
Yeah, Hamster's gonna play against Jimmy Wong for
Blindfolded.
with a completionist
Hamster, I
pledge on the
bet my
line.
life savings on you.
You
I bet
what,
my
Nina?
entire life savings on Hamster winning this game. So
Oh my
Put it all
god.
black.
Yeah.
Woo!
Sorry in advance.
all of it.
And then I need to check I think the website calendar did an update with the daylight savings time shift overnight, so it was saying that the stream was at 4.
Well,
Yeah.
it is 4:05, so 5 minutes of the stream is at 4.
There you go.
Well, thank
But
you
yeah.
guys for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow.
What 11 a.m.
We'll be back all
Eastern.
week.
The current
Eastern.
Are we in EST or EDT now?
I
I
don't
think
know.
it's EDT.
You think it's
but
EDT?
Who knows?
Whatever.
It's no longer daylight savings.
Just
time.
look at a computer. They update themselves, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Whatever. Yeah.
Well,
What-
whatever it is, we'll see you at 3 o'clock Eastern. No, what 11?
11.
I don't know.
11 o'clock current Eastern.
We'll
time.
see you.
Oh,
Thank you.
someone
It's
said
it's
nice.
EST.
Goodbye.
Falling apart over here.
Good afternoon. I don't know. Abort. Get out.